Hi, I'm Darin Burns, and I want to welcome you again to another episode of the 61 Never Forgotten podcast, where we don't have people tell us who we're going to be. We tell people who the fuck we want to be. And today, I've got a great honor of having Dan Giancola on the show, who made it to pro football at the age of 29 as a kicker. He's our Kurt Warner of Canadian football. And also, I've got Dr. Steve again with me as my usual co-host on the show. And welcome aboard, guys.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for having me,
I'm
brother.
not
I
a doc-
really appreciate it, man. And very nice to meet you, Dr. Steve.
Yeah, nice to meet
So-
you too.
So today's episode is we're going to be talking a little bit more about inspiration, motivation, never giving up on your dreams, which sometimes happens to people when you get beaten down, you get abused, bullied, or told you're no good or you can't do anything. And Dan is a prime example of, well, that and a lot of other things of beating the odds and getting there and winning a Grey Cup championship. So Dan, I want you to talk about your comeback, or well, not comeback, but how you started coming on to being a pro football player.
You know what, man? For me, it started back in high school. It happened by an accident. God honest truth, and I from age of 14, grade 9, played high school football all the way through grade 13 back in our time. I had the pleasure to play senior football throughout the entire time. Fell in love with the game, and I guess you could say for the next couple of years after high school, unfortunately, I didn't have the marks. And, my mom always, she always let me know, son, you could do anything you want, but, you got to make sure you do well in school. And unfortunately, that fell on deaf ears. I was so consumed in sports. I was a soccer player first. Played with the Canadian national teams for a brief time, the Ontario team. Sport was always first. And when it came time at the end of high school, I went and I I didn't work out for anybody. I went and I guess showcased myself for the high school, alumni. And we did it at Everwin Stadium. And Darin, when you and I were talking earlier, you mentioned Derek Noble. And Derek, actually, I met him at that camp. And he was the first, I guess you could call, coach for me, who kind of tooled me with these steps. At that camp, I went number one. I had offers.
Well, let me stop you there for a second. You're
Sure.
aging me now when you start saying that Derek was your coach. Like I'm older than Derek, so thank you. I just stopped playing, so thanks for making me feel really old
Oh,
now.
no problem. Well, listen, I know the kicker thing's going to come up sooner or later, so I got to take that shot when I can get it.
Yeah. Like I still have a problem accepting that kickers are football players. But anyhow, carry on with your story.
Right? So what I'm doing is I'm setting you up right now. So free,
Yeah.
But I did well. I did really well at that camp. And in Canada, every possible university that had a team, Western, it didn't matter, Laurier, McGill, McMaster, they all sent me letters of intention. And unfortunately, I didn't have the marks. And I'm just being real, like I was in my book. I wear my emotions on my sleeve, and I just tell it like it is. And unfortunately, I didn't have the marks. As far as the states went, University of Miami, Penn State, North Carolina, Florida State, Notre Dame. I can't tell you the amount of letters I had to go there. And I remember when it was time to write my SATs, and I was so scared because I got made fun of and bullied when I was younger. People calling me dumb, stupid, you name it. Every name underneath the sun. I was known as the jock, but just some stupid idiot. I went as far as when I went to my guidance counselor, and I was in grade 12, 13, and I said to him, I got all these letters of intent, and he straight up said to me, Danny, you're never going to amount to anything as far as school goes. And I'm just being honest with you. Go take a trade. And back then now, when somebody told you to go take a trade, they were initially saying it to you because they felt like you were kind of like stupid. So go be a plumber, go be a bricklayer, go something that doesn't involve, I guess, in their words, something that involves a lot of thinking. And so you believe that. You believe that. Mentally, you get beaten upon, from your friends, from other students. Now you got a counselor, other teachers. And so when it came time to write message, you'll go ahead. What'd you say?
Well, I was just going to get Steve. It's a good point to bring Steve in because Steve's probably got a few questions on that point, being the doc here. So Steve might have a few questions or a few comments to make on that point, just on the bullying side of things.
Absolutely.
Steve, you there?
Well, one, I would want to know why you believe your grades weren't great when you were in school.
I was, it wasn't so much, I didn't believe it. It was just, I was a C student. And my issue was, and this is and me being real. If it was something like we're doing the podcast right now, I am completely focused with you guys right now. I'm in it. If it was something like geography, English class, math class, accounting class, the teacher would be talking to me and I would be somewhere else. I was a dreamer. So I was thinking about at the time of kicking the game-winning field goal, scoring the game-winning goal with the Canadian national team, playing professional sport. I was somewhere else. I was constantly a dreamer. And the problem was when I tried to explain to people that I was diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, and there was nobody ever sat with me and said to me, hey, Dan, what's the problem? I was immediately labeled. And it was so painful, because inside you want to do better and you can do better, but it was just one of those things. If I wasn't interested in it, I wasn't in it. And I hope that makes sense.
Yep.
It does. So I think what you're saying is if somebody had sat down with you and talked with you more and listened to you more and guided you more, you would have paid more attention to academics?
I really feel I would have had a fighting chance. I can't come right out and say to you, if like what you just said to me, if somebody would have came up to me and sat with me and said, hey, it definitely would have helped as opposed to being labeled, and that's what I kind of felt like. I felt like before anybody would even want to help, you already had that label on you. Here's an example for you. When I was in grade 6, and I was coming from one school to another, and I ended up changing cities. And I was going from St. Catharines to Thorold. And everybody knew me as the jock, the athlete. So they automatically labeled me, oh, if he's a jock, he's extremely smart. And I remember I got asked to go up to the board. And the teacher said to me, Danny, get up at the board. You're going to go up with this, against this other person. You guys are going to go through this thing. It was like a point thing, a point system thing. It was a competition, I got slaughtered. All it was a long division thing.
Long division.
And when I say to you, I think almost in a sense that it wasn't the time that actually triggered me to put me in this situation. There was another time that actually did it. But I just remember to myself, I can literally hear everybody making fun of me. I can hear them all talking behind me. Like, oh my God, he hasn't even started yet. Oh, what an idiot, And I'm taking and internalizing everything. And now I take that all the way back to grade 4 when I had to do this speech. And we were split grade, 4 or 5. And back then we had these, the reading cards, only if you needed them. Now, this is the truth. I completely forgot about the project. So I was terrified of my teacher. So the teacher said to me, I was like the third or fourth person that they called up. So I made a decision on that day. Oh my God, I don't have it. What am I going to do? Okay, you know what? I'll talk about Paolo Rossi. He was a World Cup soccer star with the Italian World Cup soccer team. I think I know enough that I could talk about him for 3 minutes and get away with it. So I go up in front of the room and I say, my speech is about Paolo Rossi. Paolo Rossi won the 1986 World Cup. And I froze. I had nothing to read because I was acting like I studied it, I memorized it. Teacher goes, do it again. I do the exact same thing. I freeze. At this point now, I can clearly see in front of the room. And again, 4 or 5 splits, so there's about 30 students in there. And I'm looking around and I'm like, oh my God, I'm embarrassed. I'm about to cry. She looks at me, she goes, do it again. We get to the 4th time and she says to me, sit down. She goes, did you do it? I said, yes. I said, and I lied. I said, yes. I said, I left that at home and I said, I apologize. And she goes, ladies and gentlemen, that's a 0. That's how you get a 0. Everybody else went up. They did it. And I'm thinking, okay, so that was grade 4. Tomorrow's grade 5. Tomorrow comes. Does she not call me the first one up? So now she told me I got a 0. Grade 5's is going. I'm in grade 4. And she does the exact same thing to me. And on this day, the students were laughing their asses off at me. And I just remember to myself, wow. I started bawling. On the way home, I remember all I wanted to do was get home. And I'm running up the mountain. And I passed one of the students, one of the girls who lives down the street from me. And I'm crying. And I remember her just pointing at me with her sister, just laughing at me as I run up the hill. From that point on, and again, I'm being real with you guys, all the way from high school into the time that I was in college, every time I had to do a presentation, I took a 0. Either I didn't show up for class, I just didn't do it and took the 0. Teachers asked me, I said, oh, I couldn't get around to it. That's how mentally it messed me up. So when it came to writing my SATs, all of that resurfaced. And I was scared. And that was basically the premise of, for grade 4, I guess you could say right up until my 5th year of college, where I took every different course, because I didn't know. And again, this is a story for something else, but hopefully that answers. I'm sorry I'm so long-winded with that, but that is the actual truth about what happened in that span.
You know, Dan, Steve, before you got a question, Dan there, you know what the crazy thing about it is? He ends up becoming a professional football player as a kicker, which has probably got, if you talk about going to the front of the class and trying to do something and freezing, being a kicker, you're on an island. Yeah, we joke kickers aren't football players, but the pressure those son of a bitches are under in front of thousands of people, if it's TSN or whatever, 250,000 people watching you kick a ball through the uprights, that's pressure. So I don't know how he can go from that to doing that. That's mind boggling, because a kicker is that's worse than being like standing in front of a classroom with students trying to do a speech, and then doing that is like,
because it was something I wanted to do, Darin. It was something that I wanted to do. I wanted it so bad that I never looked at the failure aspect of it, because when I was chasing my dream to play, I was so focused. Whenever I was training, I'm on the elliptical, I'm training in the gym, I'm going to the soccer park that's just down the street. And I got this one football that I stole in high school. And every time I kicked that ball, I was sitting there going, again, this is going to sound absolutely messed up. I would line that ball 55 yards away. And I would say, and again, I'm always playing the scenario in my head. You know, they talk about visualization. I learned about that later on in life, not realizing that this is exactly what I was doing when I was chasing my dream. And I would say to myself, okay, if you miss this, your brother's going to die. How messed up is that? Honest to God, dude, how messed up is that? And I would think about shit like that. And that's the God honest truth. And it was messed up, but I actually felt the pressure. I actually put myself in that mindset of, if I miss this, he's done. And it's so messed up.
Steve, how's it feel not to have two crazies on the show with you at the same time?
Right? I'm glad we got a doctor.
We need the doctor for this episode.
Well, I mean,
Exactly,
it
right?
worked for you.
You know, whatever it
So-
takes to get yourself
And you
fired
knew
up for a
he
game,
wasn't
I
really
guess.
gonna die.
I went dark for obvious reasons. So, you know, I was
course.
thinking about what happened to me as a child, you know, so we have our different ways of getting fired up, but they're both friggin' sick.
Hey, listen, we're football players at the end of the day. I know you don't classify me as one, and that's okay, but we all wear a helmet.
You're a kicker. You're a kicker, not a football player. I mean, let's face it. Practice comes, training camp comes. Where's Dan? Oh, he's 2 football fields over with 100 footballs kicking it up and down the field, man. We're doing gashers. We're doing this. We're doing one-on-ones. We're beating the shit out of each other in training camp. And you look over and there's the kicker standing there with his coach, which is really a cheerleader, and they're
Right.
kicking a ball together for the whole afternoon. I mean, that's, you know, but anyhow, no, kickers, they have an important part, but in the locker room, I always have fun with kickers because I was a long
absolutely, man.
snapper, so I have a relationship with kickers, so I get it. But when I had a bad snap, it was on me. So I know the pressure that they're under when they do it, so I have
Yeah.
respect for them, but always fun to tease a kicker. But yeah, back
You
to you,
know,
Steve.
it,
No question.
You know, like I said, it just made it made life a lot easier as a kicker. Again, wanting to be in the position where, and trust me when I say this, you have to have that mentality of understanding you can win the game or you can lose the game for everybody. And I thank God in my 10-year career on and off. I thank God that I only had 2 shots at kicking game-winning field goals, and thank God I hit them both. You know, mentally I was always checked in, and but you know, I think going back to what we were talking about, like how I got there. For me, man, you know, after high school, I wanted to play so bad, and so there was a 2-year hiatus. You know, my dad made it very clear with me. I don't care what you do. You can live here to forever. But you're going to do one of 2 things. You're going to go to school. This was after high school. You're going to go to school, or you're going to get a job.
Mhm.
You're going to be a productive part of society, but you are not going to stay here at home and be a bum. So I decided to sign up over at Niagara College right near my house. And I started with business administration. I didn't want to do that, man. I didn't know what I wanted to do in high school. The only thing I knew was I loved kicking the football. And my first year, I did it. I was about a 65, 70 average, just kind of like high school, maybe a little bit better.
Yeah.
And during that 2 or 3 layover in between, so it was 1990, I graduated in 88. I went back to high school for one more year, 89. 90, I started. So there was a couple years in between. And I would just go for no reason. For no reason. I would take that one rubber football, my kicking tee, and I go to the soccer field near my house. And I would go there and I would kick for hours on end. I kick the ball, run and go get it 55 yards, go back. I would do this for 3 or 4 hours. Next thing you know, man, I'm at college and I had no interest being there, man. Second year, I take accounting. I was 3 months into the course, and I just sat there and I literally remember sitting in accounting class just saying, this is what I want to do. And again, there's no disrespect to anybody who's an accountant. But I just thought to myself, is this what you want to do for the rest of your life? You want to just sit in the office, just push a pencil? Like,
I have a question
so I
for you.
legitimately, yeah, I legitimately
The-
just, I stopped going. I just started going to the gym and training, and I would go kick, and I would lie to my parents, telling them I'm going to school.
What was that, Steve? You're going to ask a question?
Well, the question is like the whole trajectory you're on only works if you become a professional kicker. It
Yeah.
doesn't work for anything else. Maybe going to, get a factory job or going to work, for somebody as a
Right.
laborer.
Right.
But in terms of like career development, the only way this works is if you become a professional kicker that makes money doing it, which is, a lot of kickers don't make it to that. Right. So
I never had a plan B.
Yeah.
I never had a plan B.
Totally
It was
from a
like-
young age, totally focused on that to the exclusion of any other career development.
Absolutely,
And-
100%.
And if it didn't work, then, what would you do? Right.
The only thing
So-
that I had to fall back on was,
Mm.
for me, I was working in a grocery store. I started out working for the city of Thorold for Parks and Recreation. I got a job because I was going to college. And then from there, when that time ran out, I got a job in the grocery store. And I was lying to my parents. I was lying to my parents that I was going to college. I went as far as telling them that, because they were at one point, they were paying for my college, and I felt so guilty and so horrible. But I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I just knew that my dad wouldn't understand. It was more my dad than my mother, I guess you could say. But my mom always said to me, do well in school, do well in school, do well in school. And I know I failed her with that. And my dad was very old school Italian. It was, can you imagine saying this to somebody who came off the boats at 8 years old, couldn't speak any English? They starved as kids. There's stories of my dad going to school with the paper bag and have like a banana in there. And it was so rotten that the oil from the banana was leaking through. Can you imagine saying this to my dad? Hey, Dad. Hey, Pa. One day, I'm going to play professional football. I'm going to achieve my dream. I mean, how asinine does that sound to somebody where their thought process is, hey, this is how you do it. You put food on it. A man puts food on a table, a roof over the head, and clothes on the back. That's what a man does. He takes care of his family. He gets a paycheck. I want to go play professional football. I mean, you're talking 20 through the age of 29. And at 29 years old, your mentality is still, I want to play professional football. And I always tell people this. I do this, especially when I talk my motivational speaking. I always say this to people. Your passion will take you only so far. It's your determination that carries you through. It's the sacrifices that you make along the way. Those are the things that carry you through that, through the pain. How many times I would be sitting here, just like where the books are behind me, and I would go to tryout, my very first tryout with the Toronto Argonauts. I went 21 of 22 in field goals. I was against guys who had these monster rings, All-American. There was the former, I don't remember the name off the top of my head, the former kicker for the Edmonton Eskimos who kicked the game-winning field goal. I can't, Darin, you probably can help me out, but this is going back in 1990 something.
When was Vanderjet in Toronto? Then he went to the Colts.
He was with the Argos. He just left for Buffalo. Lance Chomick and Hank Alisic were the kickers.
Yeah, Hank. Yeah.
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 And I went number one. And when I went number one, and at the time, I think I was 23 years old. So that would have been 1993. And I remember calling my mom, calling my girlfriend. Oh my God, you're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe what happened. I said, I think I'm signing with the Toronto Argonauts. And Nick Volpe, God rest his soul, who I call him my football dad.
Yeah.
He said to me, son, do me a favor. What I want you to do is leave me your name, your number, and the college you played at. Well, I said, well, this is my name, this is my number. And Dennis Morris, sir. He goes, Dennis Morris, what college is that? I said, well, high school.
High school.
He said to me, you're not in college? I said, yeah, no. I said, I've been in college. I went to Niagara College. I didn't play football. He said, you got no game film? I got nothing. So I'll call you back.
Mm-hmm.
9 years. Yep. 9 years. Well, 6 years exact. 9 years of committing myself, but 6 years. In over 6 years, I went to 131 free agent camps. Now, if you read my book, you're going to know the answer. If you didn't read my book, I'm going to ask you this. Out of 131 free agent camps, I ask you guys, how many times do you think a general manager called me back when they said that they would? I went number one, 130 of 131 free agent camps. So I ask you guys, how many phone calls do you think I got?
Probably none.
Doc?
I would guess one.
Darin, you got it right. Not one.
And
the only reason was because I didn't have high school. I didn't have college experience. I didn't have video. So I just made a decision. How am I going to do this? Right? So I went and played with Buffalo Gladiators. Yeah. So that's what I did. I went to play. No, go ahead, Darin. Go ahead.
No, I did the same kind of road as you. I was junior football, and I was 19 years old, and I went pounding on the Ticat GM locker. Joe Zuger was there, and I said, let me play. And I did the mini camps. I did all the stuff, and he thought I was like 19. I was too young and all this kind of stuff. And then the next year I came and banged on his door, and again, he was giving me the whole letdown. But then there was a phone call that came in at the same time. It was Joanne. She was an agent back then. And she had this guy named Jack Harkness that was from Clemson University, NCAA shot put champion. He was an offensive lineman. And they wanted to bring him in to try him out. So I'm a defensive lineman. And so Joe just put his hand over the phone and said, listen, are you available at 2 o'clock? I said, yeah. He said, okay, bring him in for 2 o'clock. So I was set up to go one-on-one against Jack Harkness. And the only good thing is I knew Grover Covington and Rod Skillman, which are two hell of good football players. So I was there. He coached me up. I did the one-on-ones, and I beat the shit out of Jack 9 out of 10 times. And I got signed, went to training camp, and then sent back down to junior. So I know the doors getting shut on you. And I was the first Canadian in the history of Canadian Football League to go to the combine that never attended a university. So I feel your pain going through those struggles, man. It's a hard road to go, but the difference between success and failure is attitude, determination. And when you fail, you don't fail. Those are lessons. You always got to keep that in mind to anyone who's watching the podcast. You never fail if you keep going. They're called lessons. And when you go through a lot of lessons, you're going to get smart. You're going to achieve your goal. So I always say the difference between success and failure is in the heart and in the head, and you just drive forward. So, that's, I'm glad I'm on. I knew we were kindred brothers, but this is a little bit more ridiculous than I thought. A kicker. So, Steve, what do you think? You got a couple of wingnuts here.
I have some questions. One question is, how did you, because being a professional football kicker, there's a lot of technical understanding of kicking that you have to have, and a lot of physical training your body in just the exact ways to be good at it. How did you learn about all the technical things that you had to know about how to train, how to kick? Where did you learn about those things?
I just gravitated to the things that I actually knew that worked for me. Which is funny, because now when you watch all the videos of, the kickers that are training, it's hilarious, because it's all the stuff that I did, stuff like grabbing a cable and wrapping it around my ankle and start, doing the motion of kicking and putting the resistance on my legs. I would go on my bike every day and I would ride 3 hours a day on my bike. Then I would go do a couple hours to the gym in the morning, lifting the weights, another couple hours on the bike. Then I go back and a couple hours of kicking into a kicking net, in the winter and times like this when, it's hard to go outside. And did I know I was doing the right things? No, I just knew that I was getting stronger. I've never been up, like I told you, Derek Noble in high school was the only kicker ever to come up to me and say, hey, you know what? You need some kind of, you're all over the place. I want you to take 3 steps back and 2.5 over, turn your hips toward your tee and follow through. And I carried that all the way through the rest of my high school career. And I took that into the semi-professional career. And then I took that into the professional football career, until my first year when they flew in a kicking coach from the Miami Dolphins to work with me. So hopefully that answers your question.
It sounds like you didn't really get any specific training, but
No,
you
sir.
paid very careful attention to intuitively to the details that it would take for your leg to get stronger, for your accuracy to get stronger,
Yes, sir.
for
Absolutely.
and you obsessively focused on those things for a long time.
A long time. I can honestly say to you, in my lifetime, I probably kicked a couple and this is not exaggerating, probably a couple million kicks, of just doing the same thing over and over. When I started playing pro ball is when I actually started changing my mentality a little bit. And instead of kicking, 100 footballs in practice, I would do more air kicks. So I would put the tee down and I would simulate my kick over and over. So 1, 2, 3 over, 1, 2.5 over, head down, follow through, and repeat, and repeat, and repeat. And that's how I trained my mind. And, I had to overcome a lot of things that, a lot of guys, they take granted for. Would I have loved to play college university football? I have 0 regrets in my life. One of them is my regret is that I wish I would have did well in high school and I would have got the marks and I would have loved to have known. Now, with that said, now hear me out. I would have loved to have known what it was like to play college university football, because I really believe in my heart, if I've actually would have been coached, my whole career probably would have been in the NFL. With that said, I am the man that sits before you.
Mm-hmm. You're ready for today, brother. And that's the important thing.
The pain I went through, the mental anguish that I went through, all those years when I lost all my friends and sorry.
Well, listen, you're a kicker, so you're going to be alone. You're going to be on all that stuff. So, but I could never be a kicker. I could not do what you did. Like, I had the benefit of being a ball boy for the Argos, learning how to long snap from Leo Cahill. And he told me as a Canadian, if you want to play pro football, you got to learn how to do, you play different positions and carry a water bucket. So my water bucket was long snapping. And I got to meet Zen and Andrecision when I was in my group home. And I met him at the gym, and he was the kicker for the Argos back in the day in the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something, the amount of time and effort, he made it to the NFL, and the effort that he had to put in. I remember every day snapping 300 snaps to him, and he'd be kicking the ball. He had a bag of 100 footballs. We'd empty it out, go down, collect them, go back. We'd do the 3 times. 300 balls he would kick. I'm like, man, my arm was falling off. He was just, and then he would go to the gym. So, my hat's off to you, brother, for, doing that. Because at the end of the day, you don't know where I always sit back and look at my life. If I had a parent, if I had this, could I have been this, could I have been this, could I have been a Hall of Fame football player? I don't know. But you know something? We're here because of what we've went through. And we're here because this is our time to talk about things and stuff and hopefully inspire other people and carry your message, your book. I hope people are going to get a chance to read it. I know Andre's going to post it on the site and, follow it because it's inspirational. I mean, my book is inspirational in many different ways than yours. But at the end of the day, people shit on us. We rose above it. I was bullied. You were bullied. We've gone through it. And here we are today. Like there was a funny story. Jimmy Latimer. There was a bar in Niagara Falls, New York called the Library. I don't know if you remember that at all, but we used to go
Yes,
and
the
party over
library.
there.
Yes, yes. Yep.
So I went there one night and I was with a few of my Cat teammates. And I would talk about being bullied in school. This guy's dad worked for Mattel Toys. And he used to bully the hell out of me because I was a big, goofy looking kid. And I remember being in a box and they'd pee in the box and spit in the hole and throw worms on me. They did all kinds of cruel things when I was in grade 1. Anyhow, I saw Jimmy Latimer at the library many years later. And I was standing there. I'm 300 pounds, jacked, long hair, gold chains. I was dressed up as Mr. GQ. And this guy walks up to me. He says, "Excuse me, are you Darin Burns?" And I said, and I had 2 nice ladies with me. And I said, "Yes, I am." And he goes, "I wonder if you could remember me." And I said, "Yeah, sure. What's your name?" And he goes, "Jimmy Latimer." And I looked at him. I started laughing. Rod Skillman was with me. I said, "Rod, you got to check this out." And this guy, he was short, fat, balding, glasses. I mean, karma was a bitch, and he got a big service of it. And I looked over at him, and I said, "Rod, remember that time I told you I was bullied in school?" I said, "This is the guy that did it to me." And Jimmy looked at me, and he said to me, he says, "I didn't think you would remember it." I said, "You know why I play football? It's because of guys like you made me play football." So, at the end of the day, everything that we've gone through, we're here because we're survivors and we're successful at whatever we do. You got a gym operations, you got a book out. You can't be any more proud of your life. And you're a fucking kicker too. Jesus Christ. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that to a kicker, but
You,
at the
you
end
know,
of the
man,
day, man,
what I went through carried me through the last, and because it's the other half of the book. What I went through.
Well, I wonder if Andre's got time on that because he's got some pretty heroic stuff in there that he's gone through. But Steve, I know you got some questions there.
Yeah, it's not it. One thing that I can say is, Dan, that the pain of the humiliation you felt when you were a kid is still there.
Oh yeah.
Like you
Oh yeah.
It's still there because you started to talk about it and then tears started flowing. It's that time when Darin came in and he's like, I need to encourage this guy because I see him going down this sad, painful path, right? And Darin's reflex is, I got to help him. I got to get him on a different track, right?
Yeah.
And so he's trying to encourage you and talk about all your successes. But the pain's not resolved yet.
No, it's not. And it's because there's it's anger that fills you because I have people now that come up to me and they tell me about their dream and what they want to do. Even when I was playing, I remember sitting in the chiropractor office and this woman came up to me. She goes, "I have to introduce my son to you." And she says he works in the grocery store as well. And one day he wants to be a chiropractor. And I got up and I gave him a big hug and I said, no matter what, don't ever let anybody tell you you can't do it. Imagine this. I go to the same chiropractor. And it was about 5 years ago that the boy, who is now a man, came up to me and said, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I don't. My mom introduced me to you." He goes, "I'm now a chiropractor." And I'm thinking, okay, what are you doing here? He says to me, "Well, I'm a chiropractor, but I can't adjust myself. And I had to come to you and I had to say, Thank you for believing in me when nobody else would. And that's where the anger comes in, because I thought to myself, why couldn't it have been that simple when I was doing it? Because I'm not affecting anybody, man. How am I affecting your life? I had my own people in my own family who were talking shit about me. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I affecting your life in any way, shape, or form? You have your life and I have mine. Why do you have to put me down? Why do you have to tear me down?
Who
And so
was
that's
putting
where
you
the
down?
pain comes from.
Who in your family was putting you down, and when did that start?
It was one of my cousins who was very close to my dad. And so when I was growing up, I had a hard life with my dad. And again, like this, I could go on forever in this. And again, I don't know how much time we have. So, but for me, I had such a hard life with my father. And I had my other two brothers. And for some reason, I disappointed my father when I was 16 years old. And I was when I was 14 years old. And I was trying out for the other 16 national team. And I remember after that workout, I was at Sheridan College. And I was throwing up like crazy. And my uncle was in the changer with me and my dad. And I guess the coach had walked in and heard me throwing up. And he asked me how I was doing. I remember my dad pinching the back of my leg, like, don't tell him, And I was like, I'm okay. I says, that was something along the line of, I'm just throwing up. The whole entire ride home, my dad never said a word to me. My mom and dad had a very tumultuous up and down relationship where my dad would shut my mom out. They would get into a fight. He wouldn't talk to her for months. And he started doing that with me. But yet he was talking to my cousin Gino. And there was so much pain in that because I was like, why can't you just talk to me? And there was one day that I came home and I had tried out for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And I got signed by them. And I had got on, there was this big story. This was after chasing my dream for 9 years. And a lot of people don't know this. Again, it's in the book, but a lot of people don't know this. And I signed with the Saskatchewan Roughriders finally. I get on the plane, and all of a sudden I hear, passenger Dan Giancola, can you please come to the front of the plane? Started walking. Next thing you know, the stewardess says to me, can you please grab your baggage? I'm like, is everything okay? Anyway, fast forward. I get off the plane. They take me to boarding. And they say to me, Mr. Giancola, the Saskatchewan Roughriders have been trying to get a hold of you. They no longer need your services. I come home. And I was devastated. I went straight to my bedroom and I cried. I cried. I remember walking up the stairs and my father walks past me down the steps and he had this look on his face like, I knew it. He walked past me and went upstairs in the bedroom. I cried all night. The next day I went back to my college. That night I went back to my semi-pro team. And all the guys looked at me when I showed up because I was building it up forever. And the guys were so happy for me and proud of me. And here I am back at practice the next day. These are all my boys, man. It didn't matter whether you were black, white. These are your boys. You're playing for the love of the game. You're playing only for the love of the game. Most of these guys are former high school guys that played, former college, and some guys have never even played before, but they just want to belong. They looked at me, man, like I was the biggest freaking liar you ever met. I go home. I walk in the house. My dad was talking on the phone, and he heard me walk in, and he immediately started talking Italian. I don't think he really ever understood that. I always understood because my grandmother used to always talk Italian to me. And he said, he's home. Just wait a minute. I go upstairs in my room and just crying. I cried for 2 days. I picked up the phone. I thought he was off the phone. He was still on the phone. And God bless him, man. I got it. I completely understood where he was coming from. Here's his son. He's 28 years old. He's got nothing going for him other than he wants to play this football in his big dream. He said to my cousin, he said, he's getting to the point where he's starting to embarrass me. I'm working with his girlfriend's father at General Motors. It's embarrassing. They've been dating for 9 years. I don't know when he's going to give up this stupid dream. I never held it against him, man. I never held it against him. I really didn't, because I understand as a parent. The next day, I went to college. The next day, I go work out in the mezzanine. I'm up there for 5 hours, not realizing, just beating myself up. It's probably about 7 o'clock at night. Walking down from the mezzanine, the steps, and I happened to see the coordinator putting a poster up on the wall. And it was entitled, 1 in 100,000 student athletes will ever play a professional sport, so stay in school. I just stood there and just stared at this poster. I went in the change room, took a shower, came back out, and I tore this poster off the wall. I wrapped it up. I put it in my bag. I raced home. I put it on my wall right beside a poster that my girlfriend, now wife at the time, bought me. And it was entitled, Determination. It's not whether you get knocked down, but rather if you get back up again. In all those years of chasing my dream, all those years of all those people saying no because you didn't go to college, you didn't play university, all those years because of people saying to me, you're never going to do it. It only happens to special people. I would look at that poster, I would cry, and I would say to myself, you're entitled to feel the way you are today, but tomorrow's a new day. I grabbed that poster that I took from the college and I put it up right beside that poster up on the wall. And for the first time in my life, I said to myself, maybe everybody's right. Maybe this dream is not meant for everybody. Maybe it only happens to certain special people. I read that poster again. 1 in 100,000 student athletes will ever play a professional sport, so stay in school. Now, when I go do my motivational speaking, I preach that like crazy because I know what I went through as a student athlete. But I started thinking, my God, what are my chances? If it's 1 in 100,000 student athletes, I'm not even a student athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Something came over me. I walked over to the desk by my window. I grabbed a black marker. I went over to the poster and I read it one more time, and I thought to myself, I'm a huge fan of Bon Jovi, and I thought to myself, why Bon Jovi? What made him so special? Why couldn't it have been someone else? I just thought to myself, like, why not me? I read it one more time. 1 in 100,000 student athletes will ever play a professional sport, so stay in school. I grabbed my marker. My initial reaction was I put an X through 100,000, 1 in 100,000, and I wrote, be that one. And I swear to God,
and
even
Dan,
at the age of 29, when everybody was burying me, I swear to God, that I would not stop until somebody gave me a chance. And sure enough, a year from that moment, I signed with the Toronto Argonauts after tearing up my groin, my quad, in a workout that I did in Cocoa Beach, Florida with the Iowa Barnstormers. And I ended up signing with the Argos. They flew me back. The doctor shot my leg up so I could walk in. And I got my one and only chance, man. I got my one and only chance. And, man, I made it count. I couldn't feel my leg. I never told anybody this, really. I don't even remember if I put it in the book. There was so much in the book. I couldn't feel my leg. I couldn't walk. I hid all my pain from everybody. It would take, wake-up call was at 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. I had to get up at 5 a.m. in order to get out of bed and to be at breakfast on time. So what I say to you, man, and this is not even including the other half of this book, and I'm not even trying to sell the book. I'm just telling you straight up. When I wrote this book, it was not only about beating the odds on the football field, to believe in yourself, to chase your dream, but it was also beating
Dan,
the odds in life
thing.
and surviving something that should have killed me twice. I'm so sorry for all these tears. I really am.
We're gonna have you on for a lot more episodes going forward and stuff.
Yeah,
but one of the things that you got to consider when you say 1 in 100,000 people make it to pro as a player.
Yes, sir.
Being a kicker is probably the odds are, because on a team you've got 8 defensive linemen, you got 9 offensive linemen, you got 6 receivers, you got 3 running backs, you got 3 quarterbacks, just 1 kicker generally on the active squad, and then a guy that's linebacker that can back up during the game. So the fact that being a kicker and making it to pro, the odds are like way up there to actually do it. It's harder being a kicker than any position in football, period.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, I always, like I said, we joke about kickers, we joke about that, but, you know, the odds of doing it and getting to pro as a kicker are way higher, even getting into college, getting into this, because they don't carry that many, you know, they don't carry that. It's not a position that they worry about. So, you know, the odds that you did it and did it at 29 is like it's incredible. And then the things you had to overcome later on in life, which I'm going to have you on and we're going to talk about that, because I've had my own battles with cancer and heart and overweight and suicide, like the things, and we're going to go
wait to
through
talk
that.
to you about that, brother. I cannot wait to talk to you about all that.
Because at the end of the day, you know, playing the sport has been a great outlet for you and for me, and doing that sort of stuff. It defines us who we are today as men, you know, and good role models like for our kids and other kids to follow and stuff like that. So, you know, it's not how we start, it's how we finish. And, you know, like you and doing it at 29, man, you know, I thought, you know, I played till I was 61. Being a rookie at 29 at that level, getting into pro, that's a movie in itself. And I think you know, people that are watching this podcast today are enjoyed it, you know, get some depth. I know Steve wasn't that active in it today, but I'm sure he's got a ton of questions for for when we get on the show the next time. What do you think, Steve?
I've got a lot of observations and a lot of insights and a lot of questions for sure.
But I know that, you know, Andre's getting ready. He's got other shows to put on the link. I want to thank all the listeners and the people that follow. We've been getting some great reviews through our producer telling us that we're getting more and more people following us. You can follow us on Zeno.fm player via Google, PlayStation, or pardon me, Play Store or iOS App Store. I'm not used to all these apps and things like that, but anyhow,
Sounds like an
you can
audible.
find it somewhere. You can find it somewhere on it, and I think that, you know, the podcast is about motivation. It's about not giving up in life. Doesn't matter what life shitball throws at us, we bounce back and we define who we are as men or as people in general. I don't want to sound sexist here on stuff. Again, so I want to thank Steve. I want to thank Dan. I'm Darin Burns. This has been the 61 podcast. And again, don't have society tell who you're going to be. You tell society who the fuck you're going to be, and always live by that. Die by your sword. Thank you. Bye.